committee meeting to order. Procedural notes. This meeting will be held electronically as per section 19 of the town's procedural bylaw number 6228-19 as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Community presentations, we have one. Mr. Mike Walters, CAO, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, regarding the 2020 budget companion. Mr. Walters, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, staff, and anybody streaming in, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Are people seeing that? It's taking some time.
Yes, we're seeing it.
Oh, okay, great. So thank you so much. I'm here today to draw your attention to the budget companion document that we produce annually and our annual operating priorities. We thought we would provide an update. Traditionally, this is done much earlier in the year, but thanks to COVID, we're a little behind. So So as I said, the budget companion is essentially, it's about our programs and services, but this is the second year we've used this format. We find that it's more transparent, it meets the provincial requirements, and it gives us the opportunity to come out to council and present on what we're doing, both to regional and to the lower tier municipalities, because we do most of our work with you. So. The companion, this is just a quick table of contents, and I'm not going to go through the entire document due to time. I'm just going to flip through one example. There are 7 program areas or services that we provide and 24 activities under those service areas. And again, the intent of this document is to make it easy to read, to navigate through, to see what you want to see in regards to those services areas and the details of what we would do in a given year, so that you can see that we're actually providing great value for your investment. The first page, when you get into the actual document, is just a general budget summary. Our budget this year was roughly $21 million. It shows the operating versus the capital, and it lists the 7 program or service areas, as well as it shows you where the revenue sources are coming from and what the expenditure types are, and by each of those service areas. And I'm just going to use water risk management as an example. This is sort of the next level down, where we look at the actual service area itself. We have 10 full-time equivalents working on this program. And I'm very proud to say that the bulk of the money that we have in this area is going towards capital projects. So these are the projects that we do to either reduce phosphorus in the watershed, or to reduce flooding, take people out of harm's way, or to improve the natural heritage system throughout the Lake Simcoe watershed. And then here's one of the specific activities within that program area. Flood warning management. We provide a focus of what we're going to do. So these are things that you can actually call us out on in the future if we haven't completed them. So when I come in front of council with respect to budget for 2021, we'll be using this to essentially show you that we did achieve the outcomes that we said we would. And we can check those boxes and you can hold us accountable. We provide an outlook of what we're facing with respect to any given year. Obviously, this was done before COVID-19. And we talk a bit about service pressures, and we do get into past achievements from the previous year. So this document is going to replace our annual general report, which is going towards a more of an infographic that will be live on our website every day. It will be more of a living document with key performance indicators that the public can actually see as we progress through a given year, not waiting till the end of the year to find out what we've done. So the budget companion is linked to our annual operating priorities and our strategic plan. These are the priorities that essentially allow us to complete the 42 activities that were in the strategic plan. I'm happy to say that we will be completed all with the exception of one, and it will be completed in Q1 of next year. These AOP items are based on usually the strategic plan, but sometimes there are external opportunities. For example, money might become available, which might drive us towards undertaking certain activities, or it could be a pressure that our municipal partners or other partners are feeling. And some of these can span years, and I'll give you a brief example. I'm going to go through them extremely fast. So if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. So first up for 2020 was we've been updating our floodplain emergency mapping. We got a new program called LIDAR. It's extremely great resolution of topography across the watershed. That's allowed us to actually look at flood relief and where are there opportunities where we can remove or reduce floodplains and take people out of harm's way. So that work is being done as I say right now. Most of York is completed, and we're working on the regional municipality of Durham right now. So climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies are both completed. The reports are available on our website. We are just starting to work on operationalizing those two strategies, and we'll be contacting your staff in the very near future to see what programs and services based on the recommendations within those two that they would like to entertain moving forward. There's opportunities, I think, across the board, whether it be things like tree planting or working with staff to reduce carbon footprint through other mitigation measures. So we're very proud of the work that's been done, and we're looking forward to working with our municipalities. Asset management is also underway. It's essentially the same thing that you're doing. We're a little behind, but it will be completed towards the end of this year. And we're not going to be coming out, obviously, this coming year with a request for funding for asset issues. We're going to be holding off on that and working with what we have. So just to give you a heads up on that for budget time. Enhancing service delivery is something we do normally. It's part of our business mantra within the Conservation Authority. We're always looking for opportunities to improve. And plan review and regulation, thanks to COVID, has gone entirely electronic. Everything is now able to be completed through file transfer. And that means that people don't even have to drive into the office anymore to submit their either the plans of subdivision or their permits for review. Consultation is done using Zoom or using Teams. So consultation is still happening. It's just a new way of doing business, thanks to COVID-19. So our Sclandon Creek Operations Center is 99.9% complete. We are just waiting for the occupancy permit. I want to thank members of Regional Council, yourself, Mayor, and the rest of the councillors. This has been a investment of about $1.8 million towards renovating an old operation facility up at Scanlon. This is going to allow us to get back into the office quicker. We were having real difficulties with COVID-19 and spacing people out within the office. Given that we now have this new office space, it allows for a bit of additional growth into the future, but primarily it is going to solve some of the issues that we're having with social distancing. So we continue to fundraise for the Education Center, and fundraising, we're at about $1.5 million. We're still looking to raise another 1.5, so we still have lots of work to do. And that would pay for a new nature center up at Scanlon, which is essentially the foundation for our educational program. And our current nature center is well beyond its life cycle. So we're looking to do this without having any major requests from our municipal funding partners. We're looking primarily at fundraising and provincial and federal sources of revenue to fund this. Community engagement strategy is the one area that is
Mike,
delayed until.
Sorry, Mike, before you continue, I just need to ask council if someone would like to waive procedure to add 5 minutes. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gardner, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead. Mike, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No,
We go,
my apologies.
we're all about process, right? So go ahead.
I'm going over long. My apologies. Community engagement strategy was the one that was delayed, and primarily that's because it's hard to do good community engagement in COVID-19 times. So we are doing work through surveys and again through focus groups online, but we do hopefully we will get some opportunity to meet with the public in the future. And our municipal partners. Salt reduction is still continuing and going very well. We met with the province today, actually, and we're doing two things. We're asking the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to look at a salt regulation or a policy that, if followed by people, that they would be then exempt from litigation for trips, slips, and falls. So there's two steps to this. There's the actual creation of the guidelines, as well as then legislation to reduce litigation where people have done the right thing and followed the guidelines. So land disposition policies and strategies. We finished our acquisition strategy last year. We just finished our disposition policies and the strategies being presented at the November board meeting. And essentially there are lands that we own that essentially we shouldn't own. They're being managed by our municipal partners already. So we're looking at how can we best transfer those lands to the municipalities. They're already paying for all of the upkeep. They might as well own the property. And that will allow us to focus our activities on other land acquisition for the purposes of the next AOP, which is restoration efforts. And I'm really happy to say we've completed over 80 projects this year across the watershed. So despite COVID, we've been able to get out and do works in the watershed. And these are primarily for the reduction of phosphorus, improving water quality, some flood reduction, and a lot of natural heritage work. So staff have been extremely busy, and we'll be showcasing some of those efforts at the annual general meeting in January. So we continue to work with the province to implement the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. And our last strategic item is to develop a new strategic plan. Now, we've just decided instead of a 5-year, it will be a 3-year plan. And we're working towards the completion of that. We're going to try to get it completed before year end, but due to the consultation issue, we might end up in Q1 of next year with this as well, before it's actually approved by our board of directors. So our path ahead, it remains the same. It's very clear. We have to improve water quality and quantity. We are working to increase our natural heritage system. We're working with you, our member municipalities and other partners to make our communities safer, healthier, and we're trying to connect them more to the environment by building trail systems which are passive and getting people out of the urban fabric into nature, which is really important. We've been doing this primarily through partnerships and through innovation and engagement with others. And we do value our partnership with our municipalities. There is no more important partner than our municipalities moving forward. And we continue to monitor and report on our progress to all our partners and to the community. So with that, before I turn it over to questions, I just want to acknowledge Councillor Wendy Gartner, who sits on our board of directors. She's very, very engaged and she keeps us on her toes, and she was an excellent choice to send to the Conservation Authority. So we are very pleased with all the support that she provides. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to you, Your Worship, for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Councillor, can I get a motion to receive? Moved by Councillor Gartner, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Before I ask for any questions, Mr. Walters, this will be your last time coming before us, I believe, as you're looking at retirement. And so I did want to congratulate you on your upcoming retirement, and thank you for all your years of service on the authority. I mean, 36, is it 36 years, I believe? 36? Yeah. 36 years and 6 years as the CAO. That's incredible. And, you know, we want to thank you, I think, from the town of Aurora, obviously York Region as well, for all the work that you've done protecting our watershed. So thank you. Congratulations. All the best. And we're going to miss you. But wanted to give you that congratulations and that send off. So council, with that, I'll ask, are there any comments or questions for Mr. Walters? Councillor Gardner.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And was really pleased that we could have this presentation before the retirement. So I have a couple of questions. One is about the floodplain mapping, the updated floodplain mapping. I imagine some of the floodplain will be diminished and some will be increased. So have you seen anything for Aurora where the floodplain mapping will increase the area of the floodplain? And if so, what do you propose we should do about it to protect any residents on that land?
Mr. Walters?
For your worship. So we've been doing updates to the mapping quarterly, and we provide those updates to the board annually. But we obviously talk to staff because they're most affected, because they're the ones making decisions on the ground. We're not seeing a lot of change with respect to the flood line as far as increasing the floodplain. What we are seeing, though, are opportunities in Aurora where we could undertake works and reduce the floodplain through either improving conveyance of water, opening up culverts. There's capital works, and we're presently trying to pull together a 10-year plan that we'll be presenting out to the region that will show where the opportunities exist and where we can undertake those works, and how we can actually shrink the floodplain and take people out of harm's way. So the biggest area is around the Mackenzie Marsh right now, and we're working with Metrolinx, looking at the twinning of the lines, and there's an opportunity there where we could reduce a significant area of floodplain.
Councillor?
Thank you. Thank you. We do have a lot of flooding on that Young Wellington downtown corridor. Have you got any words on that one?
Mr. Walters?
Through your worship, I'll have to go back and look at staff's final analysis.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't see anything, unfortunately, for downtown. It was mostly on the outskirts. So,
Thank you very much. So there's going to be a provincial review of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, which may be concerning. I'll leave it there. And we do know that the Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry reduced our budget last year. So is there any, do you have any words on that? Any
Mr.
thoughts
Walters?
on that?
through your worship, at the present time, Bill 108 is still alive and well, and the province has done consultation on conservation authorities. They held 5 sessions actually across the province. I know they're working up the information from those consultation sessions, and they have notified us there will be changes probably to some of the legislation and potentially some of the regulation. And we're very hopeful that does occur, because actually our agency had requested quite a few changes to the regulation that could simplify and reduce duplication and potentially some red tape. So we're waiting on that. The province has said it would probably be sometime this year, but they haven't given us an actual approximation of when.
Thank you. My main concern, apart from flooding, is water quality, drinking water quality. So do you see that any changes coming down there that will affect your budget or municipalities' budgets?
Mr. Walters?
Through your worship, the funding for source water protection program has been very solid for the last number of years. I sit on the Joint Advisory Committee for funding, and the indications are from the province that that funding is not going to change. They do have some changes to the director's rules right now that are on an EBR posting, and they're actually getting more stringent with respect to protection of water resources as they're associated with source water protection. So the good news is I don't see this being a program that is going to have to be supplemented by our municipal partners. I think the province heard very clear from our municipal partners during the review that they didn't want to see any more downloading. So I think the province is respecting that opinion.
Councillor?
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Mayor. And with respect to that reduced funding from NNRF, I know that we were able to absorb that in our budget this year, but I believe the thought was we may not be able to absorb anything like that next year if it's done again. Have you got any information on that?
Mr. Walters?
Through your worship, currently the funding that we're receiving from MNRF seems to have also stabilized, so we're not expecting any further change. We did have to dip into our reserves to account for the reduction in funding because it was partway through the budget year, which was disappointing, but we have accounted for it next year through some operational changes, and we will be coming back to the board this year. We've done a fulsome operational review, the executive leadership team. Given that we understand that COVID is going to be an ongoing issue for at least another year potentially, and the budget is going to be tight. So we recognize the impact it's having on our municipal partners, and we want to do our share. So there's no proposed increase for those programs slated in our 2021 budget.
Councillor?
And therefore, you're not going to be coming to the municipalities to ask for increased funding?
Mr.
We
Walters?
always, through your worship, we always come to the municipalities to ask for funding. We will be in front of the region. We're meeting with staff. I think it's in November. There's a slight increase. I think it's just for COLA, and I think it's at 1%. So
Right.
we're still working through the budget process with all of our partners, and it's a negotiation. It's not a, here's the budget and we would like you to pay.
Thank you. Congratulations to the Conservation Authority for working through the financial challenges that COVID presented, and I think you've done a very good job of, well, I guess cutting back where it was required and continuing services that are so important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Mr. Walters, congratulations on a successful career, and wish you all the best in your new endeavors in your retirement. My question to you is, the last decade, and or even going back 2-3 decades, York Region has experienced, exponential growth, and the LSRCA has received, its fair share of environmental reviews. I just want to know what that looks like. Does funding have an impact, or is it an impediment to how many reviews that the LSRCA can review in a normal course of a year? For example, you can only do 30 to service all the new municipalities underneath it. And if you get a 31st review, you have to put it to the next calendar year because of budgetary reasons or lack of human resources. How does that work? And has funding ever impacted you're able to do the reviews in a timely fashion?
Mr. Walters?
Through your worship, our planning and development department actually is almost 100% funded through user fees. So if people apply for a permit, for example, they pay a fee. If a plan of subdivision comes in, there's a review associated with that for stormwater, for the planning as it pertains to Regulation 28. So we have right-sized, we feel. It does fluctuate in any given year. The staff that are available to comment, we process about 1,000 permits a year. And this year we have seen a bit of a reduction in that number, obviously because of COVID. And plans of subdivision, we have a handle on those by talking to the development industry. We actually work with them to set the fees that we charge on the review. So we feel that they're a partner in the process moving forward. So far we have not had to limit our review at all. If there's activities that have to be done and we don't have capacity, we do have consultants that we can always call on that can undertake some of the review. But that's been very, very rare. Generally, we have the staff on hand that can undertake the work. They do put in a lot of overtime, and that's just the nature of the business. We have a great team. So far, we've been able to handle the pressure. And if needed, if we see a lot of new files coming in, we always look at expanding our capacity to deal with those files.
Great, thank you very much. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walters, for being here, and certainly echo the comments of my colleagues with regards to congratulations on a long and successful career. Just want to touch a little bit on not just the work that LSRCA does, but also the organization and how you're funded. In one of the slides, you indicated that the budget essentially is $21 million, comprised of $14 million for operating and $7 million for capital. But for those that don't know, how exactly is the organization funded?
Mr. Walters.
Through your worship, we're funded through a number of sources. Number one, our municipal partners are actually, they provide not only the operational through levy, but also capital funding for specific projects that they would like to undertake. We are, as I said, allowed to raise fees ourselves through charges for permits and plan review. So that's another significant source. One of the things I'm particularly proud of is we have worked with the building industry and developed certain programs, and these are the only kind of programs in North America. They're called offsetting programs, and they provide a lot of the capital money for us to undertake the work. So we have something called a phosphorus offset program. We have something called a water balance offset program and an ecological offset program. We worked with the industry to develop these, so they were partners in the process. And essentially, if you're contributing phosphorus into Lake Simcoe, you control as much as you can. What you can't control, you actually pay an offset. And we take that money, we work with our municipalities, and we find projects to reduce phosphorus. So we're actually seeing a net reduction in phosphorus going into the lake through these programs. The same works for water balance. It's linked actually to legislation through source water protection and the ecological program as well. So we want to make sure that our forests are healthy. If people are cutting down small areas and they're allowed to cut those down, we still want to see some compensation for that. The offset provides that, and we can take that money and go out and create more forest. We can create new wetlands. We can create new grasslands. And it's been very successful with the industry. So they do deserve a great deal of credit. Initially, it was a voluntary program, and then it was enshrined in legislation through the Ontario Water Resources Act as it was enabled under the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. So it is specific to Lake Simcoe and the Lake Simcoe Protection Act.
Thank you. Through you, as a follow-up, we touched briefly on Bill 108 and the impact it's had to conservation organizations in Ontario, but aside from that, when you look forward for the next 5 years, and granted, it'll be your predecessor, but what are some of the funding challenges that the organization faces looking ahead?
Mr. Walters.
Through your worship, operational dollars are always tough and tight. And with COVID, we know that there's a lot of pressure being placed on our municipal partners. So we're expecting that we'll have to have some austerity measures in place as we move forward. And that's why we're doing the operational review. In part, it was part of our strategic plan anyhow. Every 4 years, we do an operational review, make sure that our programs, our services are relevant, make sure that our municipalities and other partners are getting good return on their investment. So the outcomes that we say we're going to achieve, we're achieving. That was really important. It's also allowed us to drive innovation and change. So while I see the budget pressure being pretty much a same old budget for the next number of years, there are opportunities out there. The offset program was one, but there are federal programs and provincial programs that we can take advantage of to drive change. And we're just getting started with the offset programs. As I said, we completed 80 projects this year. I know we're going to more than double that next year. And what I see happening into the future is an acceleration of that work so that we can meet our goals and our targets with respect to the ecological health of Lake Simcoe. So I'm a glass half full kind of guy usually. So I am actually hopeful that despite some of the stresses that we're going to be placed with COVID, we're still going to be able to forge ahead and see some growth in certain areas of the organization.
Thanks for that. Yeah, and thanks for that, Mike. And certainly, certainly very proud of the work that Lake Simcoe's done, and hope to hear more good things the next time the organization comes. gives us an update. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland. You're on mute, Councillor.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Through Mr. Mayor, thank you so much, Mike, for coming and giving us this great presentation of what's going on at the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. Yes, you will be very sadly missed. Congratulations on your retirement. So I echo the same comments. I did have a quick question, although a lot of them were answered by a lot of lively conversation and questions earlier. But earlier you had mentioned there was a meeting that had happened or occurred with the province in relations to the salt guidelines and retention rather. There's some guidelines, and pardon me, I didn't really hear you because you were going in and out a little bit, and I was wondering if you could kind of fill me in a little bit of what that meeting was about and what was accomplished out of that.
Mr.
Certainly.
Walters.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in 2019, we formed a group called the Freshwater Roundtable. And that is a very diverse group. It includes people from property management, Choice Properties, for example, World Wildlife Federation, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, Gowlings, Landscape Ontario, and a number of other property management groups to look at the issue of salt, because we've seen a five-fold increase in salt since 1971 in Lake Simcoe, and it's disturbing. We've been meeting with the province, and they actually sat on the Freshwater Roundtable as observers, as did the federal government, when we created the discussion paper that put forward this concept of, number one, we need strict guidelines on application, or guidelines that are enshrined in some type of policy or guidance document, so that when we're working with the contractors, they know what to follow. Smart About Salt is one of the partners, and they've been training contractors on guidelines for years now, and we've been hosting a number of those events across the watershed. So they've been very successful. So we actually have, through this discussion paper, a number of options for the actual application rates and guidelines for salt management moving forward for private contractors. And this is focused more on commercial industrial, not so much on our municipalities, because you already have a salt management plan that you're requested to adhere to. The next step was this idea of looking at how can we protect people who follow the guidelines from litigation, because frankly, it's the slip, trips, and falls and the lawsuits which are driving contractors to put more salt on than they need. And that cause and effect is the issue. So we met with staff today, and we're hopefully going to be meeting with the minister's office in the very near future. I have done presentations to all of the watershed MPPs regarding this, and we've got great support. And so now is the time to make some change with respect to salt. There are water courses across Ontario that become saltwater streams in the winter months. And it's simply because there's so much salt applied. And that's primarily in those industrial commercial centers. So,
Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the detail there. And I know I've sat in some of the meetings and I've heard this conversation. So I was very pleased to hear that the province was sitting in those meetings, and hopefully we can forge forward and make some change and some education out there to switch people's habits into utilizing something a little bit different to be safer on the environment. I appreciate that. You had mentioned $1.5 million towards education, which I think is fantastic. And I think that's where it all kind of starts with. Within that education, was this an overarching education to the general public? Was it with schools and schoolhouses, or is there something specific that you can maybe share that that's involved in the funding?
Mr. Walters.
through your worship, essentially the funding right now is for the replacement of our nature center, which is the user for our educational program. And that's primarily with school groups, but we do provide other programming for adults and sometimes professional services. So working with the industry on lit courses, that type of thing. So that's what I was referring to. Our educational program was impacted this year because when schools closed, there was a revenue loss associated with having to stop some of those programs. I'm happy to say that they're all back online now remotely. And we produced some special product and have some special agreements now with both Simcoe and York Region School Boards to provide remote educational opportunities for students. But we are hoping to get them back out into nature soon and build this new nature center to facilitate the education program in 2022. So,
Counselor?
That's really great news. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you were able to find some sort of innovation and opportunity through COVID. I heard you a couple of times saying thanks to COVID allowed you guys to kind of move forward with some of the renovation and the moving and placement of people. So I'm glad to hear that there was some positive attributes that were risen above through this time. So anyway, thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in November before you formally retire.
thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Walters?
I just wanted to thank staff because I may or may not see them. I've had an excellent working relationship with all your staff as well. And I just wanted to thank them for all of their support over the years. So definitely very much appreciated. So and that's that.
Well, well, thanks, Mr. Walters, for like I said before, everything you did. Congratulations, all the best. Hopefully, I'm not sure if you have plans of being on a boat on Lake Simcoe and just going around and enjoying life, but all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, with that, I'll ask for a vote to, Mr. Clerk, did I ask for a mover and seconder? I did, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
Been a while. Okay. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
Council, we have no delegations. Consent agenda, we have none. Advisory committee meeting minutes. Did anyone have any questions on any of those or wanted to pull one of them? Councilor Gardner? You're on mute, Councilor.
Thank you. No, I don't have questions about the minutes. I have questions about the agenda that was on that committee. So could I ask that now, or would you like me to ask that in new business?
You can ask that now.
Okay. So I think the report that was presented by staff expressed concern that the proposed addition to the home exceeds the maximum depth that's permitted in the Heritage Conservation District Plan.
Councilor,
that- yeah.
is this going to require a little bit of discussion? Because maybe we should just pull the item.
Yes, it will.
Okay, so how about you want to pull, so that's, and I'm assuming it's 7.2, the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting minutes?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other ones?
Oh,
Any-
yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Also the FAC minutes, I have a question, but it may take our CFO a couple minutes to answer it.
Okay, well, we'll pull that one as well. All right.
Thanks.
So Council, can I get someone to approve 7.1 and 7.4? Councilor Kim, seconded by Councilor Humphreys. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, we'll start off with 7.2. Councilor Gardner, go ahead. Can I get you first to move? Would you like to move the recommendation or to receive it?
Sorry, I'm not looking at I'm looking at you and not the agenda. Is 7.2 the hack minutes?
Yeah, they're the hack minutes, and the motion is just to receive for information. So would you like to
Right.
move that?
Sure.
Thank you. Someone second that? Councilor Humphreys, Councilor Gardner, floor is yours.
Thank you. So this would be to, I guess, either Councillor Humphreys or to Mr. Waters. In the agenda for the item about an addition to a heritage home or home in the, not heritage home, a home in the Heritage District, staff expressed concerns that the proposed addition exceeded the maximum depth that was actually permitted in the Heritage Conservation District Plan. And I mean, that plan is in place to protect the historic patterning of the buildings in that area. So it's important that we keep to those patterns. And also, of course, we can't refer to anything that was done, any additions or new builds that were done prior to 2006 when the district plan came into place. So when we have a report that says staff are concerned that the additional depth is not in keeping with this pattern that the plan wants to maintain, and the staff requests that a one-story extension for an attached garage be eliminated. I would like to know either from Councillor Humphreys or from staff, where do we stand on that? Because we have a district plan that's pretty specific in its parameters. Do we enforce the district plan because the resident doesn't want to do a non-attached garage?
Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, the district plan contains guidelines. They're not policy, so they provide a roadmap for additions and new builds within the district in terms of maintaining its character. Second thing is we are reporting on this at GC next in 2 weeks with
Okay.
a recommendation. So they've applied for a heritage permit and they require the approval of council before the permit can be issued. What I believe staff have identified is the fact that the depth of the addition doesn't align with the balance of the homes in the neighborhood, and that we're recommending to the applicant that they pull back and on the depth of the addition.
Counselor?
Thank you. I appreciate that, because when you go on the town website and you look at the page in the planning department that says what the process is for an addition to a house in the conservation district, it's very strict. It talks about the heritage, referring to the heritage district plan, the official plan, the provincial policy statement, the federal, I think it's called federal guidelines for guidelines for preservation of historic homes, something like that. So the process is that we keep to all of these guidelines when we're approving something or not approving it. So we sound like we're very strict. And I'm glad to know that we are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions to this item? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 7.3, Finance Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Gardner, would you like to move this one as well?
Thank you. Yes, I will.
Thank you. Someone like to second that? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gardner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. There was a motion, I believe you brought the motion, Mr. Mayor. There was a motion passed by the FAC to, instead of doing a 3.4% tax levy in 2021, we would take it down to 2.99. So, 2.9. Thank you. So I was speaking with our CFO and asking what kind of implications that had. And she's knows that I'm going to be asking the question this evening. So I would like her to speak to that, taking it down that 0.5.
Sure. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So for us to go from the 3.4 to the 2.9 is a 0.5% reduction. And our 3.4% tax levy was based on 1.9% for operational costs, so inflationary pressures on operations, plus 0.5% for the Library Square debt financing and 1% for the capital costs. So we would not be doing anything that would change that Library Square financing cost. That would still need to remain along with the capital cost. So that's the 1.5% right there. So we're looking at that, reducing that 1.9 by 0.5%. The other challenge we do have is our assessment growth is coming in lower than what we had forecasted in last year's budget, is coming in about 0.5% lower. So overall, we are needing to find about $500,000 in savings to be able to meet that 2.9. We are working through this, and we're thankful for the grant that we received for the Safe Restart funding from the provincial and federal government, because we have a number of significant pressures relating to COVID-19 that we're forecasting for next year. And this grant funding is going to help us manage those pressures, along with some other one-time savings that we have for next year. So we're not pushing these costs down the line. We'd actually be just dealing them as those, that funding will handle those one-time pressures of lost revenues relating to COVID-19. So we are still working towards getting to that 2.9. We look forward to presenting the budget to you later this month, and we're just waiting for the finalization of the Central York Fire Services budget next week at the JCC meeting. And once we have that, we should be able to finalize our numbers. But our goal is not to push anything down the line, but still to try and maintain the initiatives that were included in the multi-year budget last year.
Counselor?
Thank you. And we didn't have that discussion about pushing anything down the line, but it's, I mean, that would not be appropriate for our council to do that to our residents. So I'm very glad to know that that's not on the table. And I think there's also a thought that inflation might be less this year.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we look at inflation based on what the Consumer Price Index shows, it's a very different basket of goods than the basket of goods municipalities have. So it's not always a straight one-to-one type savings. A lot of our increases relate to contracts where we already have contracts in place, which may include specific increases annually, and also the cost of benefits. So benefits generally tend to increase regardless of what inflation is doing. So it's not a one-to-one match with inflation. That being said, we're also looking at inflation over the next couple of years and what some of the bigger banks are starting to forecast. And they're forecasting between about 1.5% to 2% over the next couple of years. So if we can get our inflationary pressures down to about 1.4%, I think that's more in line with what we're expecting over the course of the budget.
Counselor?
Wow. So, and you will be telling us how we can get our inflationary pressures down to 1.4 at some point?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Is that in budget?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, during the budget later this month, we are going to focus on what the changes are to our multi-year budget. So we will specifically highlight what we have changed and compared to the budget that was approved last year. So that will highlight how we've gotten down to that 2.9%.
Counselor?
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Counselor Thompson?
Thank you. Just to add on to Councillor Gardner's statements, the minutes do reflect the fact that the conversation, all three councillors, myself included, Councillor Gallo and yourself, were concerned about any budget pressures being passed on to future years. And we were quite clear that we are happy to strive to achieve the goal of 2.9%, but do not want to see it being done at the detriment to future years. And so, staff were fairly responsive that they could achieve that goal without doing so, but it's a wait and see. I'm sure Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel and her team are working hard towards that goal, and we'll see what happens come budget time in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have items, well, we're into the items requiring separate discussion. 8.1, FIN 20-015, 2019 year-end budget report as of December 31st, 2019. One, that report number FIN 20-015 be received for information. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Humphreys, second. Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 8.2, PDS 20-044, the Town of Aurora proposed anti-idling policy. 1, that report number PDS 20-044 be received. And 2, that council approve the Town of Aurora anti-idling policy attached to this report. Someone like to move that? Councillor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to highlight that the Community Advisory Committee comments with their feedback was they had really wanted to see the number of minutes of idling align with majority of the other municipalities that are surrounding us. So currently we're being presented this anti-idling policy at 5 minutes. But it does state in this report that the majority of the surrounding municipalities idle for 2 to 3 minutes, which is the policy. And I think it would make sense to be a little bit more consistent and reduce that idling to 2 to 3 minutes, as the report says, including Newmarket, East Gwillimbury, King, Markham, and Richmond Hill. The policy, I think it's great. It says it's got some exemptions when it's unsafe for an operator. If it's really cold, obviously you're not going to be pulled aside and say that you're idling. So I really do like that. So I don't really think that 2 to 3 minutes is really something that wouldn't be achievable. In fact, in the report it does mention that I think it's the Corporate Environment Action Plan. I'm trying to figure out where it says. So I don't have it highlighted. The National Resources Canada promotes a 1 minute limit as a national guideline for vehicle idling. So I think that if we could start at the 2 to 3 minutes and then have a review after two years, I think that would be something I would like to see. And then I hopefully the rest of my council members will agree.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been working on this for a long time, years. The problem with idling and anti-idling is that it's very difficult to enforce. So I wanted to bring forward a bylaw. There was an amazing thing going on. There was municipalities were challenging each other. That was in probably 2006, 2005. And so there was a lot of buy-in to the anti-idling policies because everybody was trying to outdo each other. Fortunately, Aurora got into that very late. And so the bloom was off the rose at that point. So with respect to anti-idling, I mean, a bylaw is the best because it gives us a leg to stand on. But on the other hand, it's also difficult, as I said, to enforce. I did see somewhere in the report that if we reduce the time that we're allowing cars to idle, that we have a much better chance of enforcing a bylaw on this. So I'm looking forward to down the line, maybe being able, as Councillor Gilliland said, doing this for a couple of years, doing our education. We've done education before, but doing our education and maybe moving to a point where we could do some enforcement. But even with a policy, it allows me to go up to somebody's window and they're sitting in the car and they're idling for a long time, especially if it's a truck, and politely ask them if they know that we have an anti-idling policy. And I've done it with trepidation, and I haven't had anybody try and, bite my head off. But it's more and more important to our air to prevent these exhaust fumes from going into the air. I think people are also more aware of it. So I would like to sincerely thank Natalie Keel, who is our environmental manager. She's been working on this. She's been working on a lot of things. And as Councillor Gilliland also knows, and I think maybe Counselor Humphreys consulted her with respect to the motion. So motion from last week, she's really doing, I don't know, it's a job that, the job that she's doing is really benefiting us, and I would like to express great appreciation for her and for her work.
Thank
Thank
you, Counselor. Counselor Thompson.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to hear from Mr. Waters with respect to the decision and the time limits. I mean, you read the report, staff have done their due diligence. They did a municipal scan of all the various municipalities. They looked at, I guess, various best practices, and at the end of the day, they've made a recommendation on what they feel is the appropriate time limit with respect to idling. And so, while I understand the comments of the committee and Councillor Gilliland as well, I guess I'd like to understand why staff made the recommendation that they did.
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation was to align the policy with the noise bylaw, which contains a 5-minute idling cap on it. That allows the town or the bylaw officers in particular to enforce the anti-idling policy based on the noise bylaw, which does have a 5-minute cap. So, it'll be difficult to have these two different numbers out there. So our recommendation was to go with the 5-minute limit on anti-idling in order to align it with both the noise bylaw and also the parks bylaw does have a 5-minute cap as well. So that was our recommendation.
Counselor.
Thank you. I guess through you to Mr. Waters again then. So my understanding is, it was done to align with the various pieces of legislation we have in the town already in terms of bylaws. So what would be the impact then if we were to change this bylaw to 2 or 3 minutes, but not change the other bylaws from their 5 minutes?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as you know, this is a policy, so it's a guideline, and there's nothing to fall back on, and to tell somebody that you're idling in excess of 2 or 3 minutes. So if we keep it the 5 minutes, it allows us to then apply the noise bylaw and to enforce it.
Counselor.
So by changing the time limit, we sort of, I guess, water down our ability to enact or to follow up on this. But if we keep it to 5 minutes, then we can enforce it. So I appreciate that. I guess, would it be possible then, if we were to revisit this in 2 years, then to bring forward the other two bylaws so that everything could be viewed in conjunction? And then if you wanted to adjust the time limit from 5 minutes, you would do it with all three pieces in conjunction. Would that make sense?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. In fact, in a couple of years, we could actually bring forward an anti-idling bylaw. That's the best way to enforce anti-idling, as seen in the rest of York Region, except for King, which has a policy in force at the moment.
Thank you.
Council.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, did you have your hand up? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And no, I appreciate this. Many of my questions have been answered, and I do really appreciate this excellent step in the right direction. And now I understand the 5-minute fallback, so we can go back on our noise bylaw. Just a quick question to you, Mr. Mayor. It's actually I just thought of it. We have the train that comes in and idles for quite some time at our station. Would that apply there? I know it's different, but sometimes it's 20 minutes and that train just idles right at the Wellington section stop in Aurora. Would that be applicable, or is that out of our jurisdiction?
Mr. Waters.
So do our jurisdiction.
Mr. Mayor, that's a great question, Councillor Humphreys. I would say it's out of our jurisdiction, but I think it's just important to remember that these are diesel trains.
Right.
And they need to keep warm, which is why they keep idling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I just noticed that it sometimes sits for 20 minutes. Maybe it's in between runs or whatever, certain times a day. But no, understood. It has to keep going. I just thought I'd throw that, no, but other than that, I'm very happy about this. Thank you. And thank you to the committee for providing their feedback as well. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? I guess I just add that I think everyone's done a lot of work on this. I mean, I think everyone's talked about anti-idling policy or a bylaw for a while. And I did want to thank former Mayor Daw, who last term near the end came to the Environmental Advisory Committee and brought forward to look at reinvigorating and starting the conversation again about creating a more stringent policy. And I'm glad to see that staff and all of us have worked towards that. So it's great that we're here. Obviously, there's more that we can do, but I think that if we move forward and see how this works, and then, as has been said, 2 years' time, we can revisit and maybe make some stronger policies. Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters. So from what Councillor Thompson was saying, we're just amending a policy, not necessarily having a bylaw on anti-idling. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct, yes.
Councillor?
So, thank you. So just having read, what the other municipalities are doing, they all seem to have a standalone bylaw for this anti-idling. And you do have an alternate recommendation here suggesting that, where is it here? Suggesting that you create an anti-bylaw, standalone bylaw. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct. That is an alternative recommendation that if you want to really enforce anti-idling, gives us the best tool available to enforce the anti-idling.
Councillor?
Thank you. And would that be something that would be confusing to direct staff to go through with this standalone bylaw versus going through with this policy? Like, is it going to be confusing by separating it, or is it something we can go through now and say, let's do the standalone implementation that aligns with all the other municipalities in New York region? Is that something that would be done easily, or is it going to be confusing for people?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor, you're asking if we just forego the policy now and just move forward with a bylaw implementation? Is that kind of where you're going on this?
Councillor?
I guess that's where I'm going with. I'm just trying to understand why we're waiting this 2 years. I mean, clearly all these other municipalities have success in this at the 3-minute mark, and we've got a lot of examples in other municipalities. So I don't see why we wouldn't go forward with an actual bylaw so we have something to enforce. 5 minutes is a long time to be sitting around in your car and letting it run. I mean, we're not talking about trying to keep warm in the winter or prohibiting people from the function of actually the car itself or the vehicle or truck, but to sit in one spot just for the sake of sitting in a spot for 5 minutes is a long time. And I think that we can all attest to when we're sitting at a red light and we're waiting for it to change. And my gosh, if it takes more than 2 minutes, we're all kind of like, clicking our thumbs and going, with this light, hurry up and change. So 5 minutes is a long time. And I just, obviously this is not the first time this has been implemented. There's 35 municipalities that you had stated that do this. And for me, I kind of look at it and say, let's do the alternative recommendation and, implement an anti-idling bylaw lines with the other municipalities.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if that's the wish of council, then we can certainly move in that direction. As a first step, the policy is proposed, and we can certainly look towards implementing a bylaw within 2-year period, given the experiences of the policy. But again, that's if we're directed to do that as staff, we will certainly do that.
Councillor?
Well, I just want to. I don't have very much time to talk now because that's my second time. Well, I would like to put the recommendation on the floor for the alternative recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, I just want to make sure procedurally, are we good? As an amendment, or is it
You
contrary?
put the alternative on the floor. It's contrary to the motion on the table. You got to defeat this.
Councillor, that's one sec. That's why I'm asking the clerk for confirmation. Mr. Clerk?
I would say that that would be a contrary amendment, and it should be, you should defeat what's on the floor right now before moving that.
Okay, so Counselor, this would have to be defeated, and then we could put the alternative recommendation.
Okay, I just didn't know. I only have a couple times to talk. It's my second time, so I just didn't want to miss the
Yeah.
opportunity.
That's fine.
That's where it went.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Humphries, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate what Councillor Gilliland is asking, because it'd be good to go right to the idling bylaw. What I'm wondering is, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, are we actually recommending to implement this now? And it looks like we can do this now. And we've got a great fallback, because if someone's idling for 5 minutes, we got them on a noise bylaw, so they can't idle longer than that. I think it's a real solid way that our bylaw, or us as individuals, people, residents can knock on a window and go, hey, we got a 5-minute, noise bylaw, turn off your car. But in the meantime, and I just want to make sure this is what the report is saying, that we move forward to what Councillor Gilliland would like within the 2-year process, that we start to move forward to have our own anti-idling policy, so that there's no delay, because I'd like to get this moving right off the top. I'm not sure if Councillor Gilliland was hoping to do both at the same time, like get this moving right away and then have staff come back with the bylaw to go with the anti-idling. So I think that would be perfect. So I just, as far as I'm concerned, if we can move forward with this one and then have staff come back and do the other, that'd be perfect, I think.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Gardner, do you have your hand up?
Thank you. I did.
Second time.
I tried to get this as a policy, and there was a lot of pushback because, I'm sorry, I tried to get this as a bylaw, and there was a lot of pushback. And my suggestion would be, I don't think at this point we can just spring it on the residents. I think that maybe we could do an education and communication policy for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and then go right into a bylaw. But I don't think the residents would be very happy to go right into a bylaw. So I love the idea, but I think we need to do it in a couple of stages. I think maybe 2 years is too long, to wait to enforce. I mean, people know. It's not that they don't know about anti-idling. It's just that they don't want to do it.
Thank you, Counselor.
Maybe one.
Counselor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. I think we all agree that we want to get to a place where there is a bylaw in place, but I think we want something now. As the report says, this has been a conversation for many years, and it's taken a long time just to get to this point, which is a policy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see us, approve this now, at least have something in place, and then we can all work towards that bylaw. The review is to take place in 2 years, and that was my understanding, that in 2 years' time, we would be talking about a bylaw. I also think that it provides a bit of a transition to Councillor Gartner's comments. It gives us a chance to spend some time educating the public, because we're just enforcing idling by policy along with our noise bylaw. And then when it comes time to make those adjustments, if council decides to reduce the time limit, then it's an easier transition. So I like staff's approach myself. We may not all agree, but that's fine. But for me, I'm comfortable adopting the policy now, having something in place, and then moving forward to a bylaw before this turns up.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments or questions? I only have Counselor Kim and Counselor Gallo who haven't spoken yet. Otherwise, Counselor Kim, go ahead.
Thank you. I mean, I'm in agreement with Councillor Gardner in that, we have some sort of an education phase, whether it be 6 months or a year, but I am in agreement with Councillor Thompson, and from our past experience, it does take up to a year, perhaps longer, to get a final bylaw realized. So, I think inherently I'd like to have something now. but in reality, just like having the transparent garbage bags, that motion that came at last term, there has to be an education process, and we gotta, feel this out with the residents. And so, why not wait a year or two? So, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years, I'm indifferent. But I think putting the bylaw in place immediately would be a source of consternation for most residents, I think. And so I'm fine with the staff recommendation, and let's work on the bylaw for the next year or two.
Thank you. Councilor Gallo, did you want to speak?
I share most of the thoughts, while I would actually prefer we move into it right away, but I agree that doing so should take some time and a transmission time frame. If ultimately the intent is to mitigate the exhaust that's going into the environment, it should be moved as quickly as we can. I can't stand it when I see it happen. I'm sure we're all on the same page. And I'm all for giving staff the teeth to enforce it. So as quickly as we can do it, I think it should be done.
Thank you. Call the vote. Councilor Gilliland, you spoke twice already.
I just wanted to amend it. I can't amend it.
Sure, what's the amendment?
6 months.
Well, I want just to amend it just to have council staff report after 1 year versus the 2. A lot of people had kind of spoken about the 6 months, a year, 2 years. After listening to everybody, I agree. It's probably good to, phase into it. So instead of waiting that full 2 years, why not just wait the 1 year?
Okay, so you're gonna amend it to 1 year. Someone like to second that? Councilor Gardner, thank you. To the amendment. Councilor Thompson, to the amendment, please.
Just to be clear on the amendment, is the amendment for staff to report back on the policy after 1 year, or to staff to bring forward the review of the policy in 1 year? My preference is bring staff in 1 year, have them report back on, I guess the education campaign, what we've done. And if that time council feels we're ready to move forward with the policy, great. But I'd like to have a report from staff with regards to, the successes, the challenges, whatever it should be. And then let's make that decision on the policy, not necessarily bring the policy forward in 1 year. So I just want to know the amendment, whether the amendment's for a report from staff or to review the policy in 1 year.
To review the policy. To review the policy.
Councilor Thompson?
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions to the amendment? Call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Unless Councilor Kim and Councilor Gallo would like to speak, I'm going to call the vote. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 8.3, implementation of automated speed enforcement program. 1, that report number PDS 20-050 be received, and 2, that staff report back on the findings of the region's automated speed enforcement program following completion of the 2-year limited use pilot program. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councilor Gardner, Councilor Thompson, any comments or questions? Councilor Gardner, I'm expecting you to speak because I know you really wanted this and you've been working hard to have this in community safety zones. So I'm actually gonna just pass it right to you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go off Zoom so I can look at the agenda. But you can still hear me?
We can still hear you.
Thank you. So, this is a limited program with 1 camera, but I'm very happy that it's happening. I have some questions though. Michael Batts. So who would that be you, Mr. Waters? Would you be? And I'm
Yes.
echoing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. I will respond to your questions on this report.
Thank you. I'm questioning, it says the town currently has 4 designated community safety zones under the bylaw.
Mhm.
My understanding is that all school areas, public school, public school, high school, I guess even private school would be community safety zone. I didn't realize they had to be designated.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's, excuse me, that's my understanding, that they have to be designated in the bylaw,
Counselor?
be enforced.
So we could designate, I noticed that what the region has chosen, what we've chosen are on very busy roads. But we could designate any schools was to have safety zones.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. And you know, from an enforcement point of view, you would have to put them in a bylaw.
Thank you.
Counselor?
This is my motion from 2016, or part of it. And it came about because we were having a lot of trouble with speeding from the GO station around the town park area, which had a lot of kids in it. And then it was expanded to community safety zones. So I'm glad to see it back. My intention, though, was that when the province gave the municipalities the right to do this, that we could go ahead and do it. Does anyone know, or Mr. Waters, do you know what a camera would cost?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe there is a figure in the report of approximately $50,000, and the cameras would be leased from a particular vendor. Sorry, units are about $50,000 per year. This is on page 6 of 7.
Didn't see it, thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you. So I don't know, I wasn't going to ask this, but could you find out for the next GC perhaps, if what the Ontario government has passed would enable Aurora as a municipality to have a camera and do its own work with this?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe there's a couple issues here. One is the cost of the camera. It comes down to money in terms of paying for the
Right.
camera. And second of all, it's the process of paying the fines and
Right.
having a place where you can do that. And at this point in time, we would go to the region, and we would not be able to recoup any of the revenue, is my understanding.
Thank you. I did see that. I think there is an attempt, though, I don't know if Toronto's leading it or not, to be able to have the municipalities collect the money.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. The Toronto is leading an effort among the GTA municipalities to sort of contract or pay for the contract in terms of the cameras, and then deal with the fine payment.
So then the municipality would get the fine payment. So that would cover the cost of the enforcement, but that's not possible yet. So something to put on the back burner. I think it would make our town safer. I think this will make town safer, and if we could collect money for it, that would be great. I think that's all I have to say at the moment. I'm just very, very pleased to see this starting to happen. And I had a big, well, if you can have a fight on email, then I had a fight with a resident who was very unhappy about this. And, he said it was a money grab. And in fact, if you're obeying the speed limits, or even if you're going a bit over because they're not enforced a bit over, then you don't have to worry about this being a financial problem for you. So I don't see it as a money grab. I see it as a way to promote safety.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I guess through you to Mr. Waters, I just want to understand the recommendation. So the recommendation in front of us essentially says that the region has decided to implement these cameras and that the region will operate them and that the town of Aurora is not going to do anything. We're going to wait 2 years until their pilot program is done. Once they provide us the data, then we will revisit this issue and make a decision for ourselves. So this is kind of like a motion to defer for 2 years until the region comes back to us. Is that accurate?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. We will take the data that's generated by the regions program and then bring forth a report to determine whether we should implement this at the local municipal level in Aurora.
Councillor?
Thank you. So really, I mean, while I'm sure we all have questions and are interested, it may not be relevant in 2 years, or we might just be asking the same questions again if in fact council approves us to wait for the region's 2-year pilot. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this one? Call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gardner. Second time.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if I was clear before because I was kind of not clear in my own mind. But is it possible to find out, Mr. Waters, that if under the new Ontario regulation, that municipalities can do this? I know that we can't do it because we don't have the money to do it right now. But if Toronto is successful in being able to get the money paid directly to municipalities, is it within the realm of possibility to do it? It would be advisable to wait till some of the region statistics come back about how much work is involved with this for staff. But I'd just like to know if the region has picked up on this, could municipalities do that as well?
Mr. Waters?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I believe, yes, the municipalities can implement these cameras in their municipalities. They'll have, but there's a cost issue associated with that, and it's a bit of an unknown at the moment. So the region has offered to basically pioneer the program initially, and we can basically take from their information whether this is a program Aurora wants to implement, and also the cost to implement it as well. And the process for processing fines as well is important as well.
Thank you. I'm
Councillor?
glad. Thank you. I still would like to have that answer, but I'm very, very glad that there's a start on this at least. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 8.4. Sorry, let me go back here. 8.4. This thing wants to go slow today. We go pedestrian grades, separated crossings and future priority crossings within Barrie Go Rail Corridor. 1, that report number PDS 20-055 be received, and 2, that council approve the priority rating of the pedestrian rail crossings identified in attachment 2, and staff report back on the feasibility of funding the crossings as part of the 2022 budget 10-year capital planning process. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Gallo, seconder. Councillor Gilliland. Comments or questions? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I know this came about from our discussions through Councillor Gallo's notice of motion. I think at the time, everybody was supportive of getting some accurate costing. Staff have provided it. I don't see personally any reason to go forward and have staff do more work and debate this at the budget unless somebody is actually willing to support and pay for one of the underpasses that ranges anywhere from $3 to $8 million, or if they're looking to do all 8 for $30 million. I think that we were asked to explore this. We have. Metrolinx has made it clear where their position is, and the only options if the town wanted to proceed is to build under or build over. And for myself, I'm not supportive of spending $3 to $8 million per underpass. And so I'm happy to receive the report, but I'm not supportive of continuing this discussion at budget.
Any other comments or questions? Did you want that separate? Councilor
Yes,
Gardner?
please.
No, go ahead.
Split the vote, please.
Okay. Councilor Gardner, did you want to speak, or am I going to call the vote?
No, I wanted to speak.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Of course, we want this, and we want our residents to know that we want it. Would be such an enhancement to the town and for the pleasure of our residents. But, you know, unless the town wins a lottery, and I don't know if a town is allowed to win a lottery, I don't know where. I mean, where would we get this money? And whatever, even if we did one, whatever one we did, all the people who want all the other crossings are going to be annoyed with us because they want their area with the crossing. So I don't see how we can win this one in any way with money, with the residents, and it's truly unfortunate. And I thank Councillor Gallo for bringing forward the idea that at least we would have an idea of what needs to be, what would need a crossing and how much it would cost. And if the residents have any ideas about how we can pay for this, then I'd be pleased to hear from them.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Humphries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. I was trying to read over the Cousins Drive. It looks like it's, what they're asking is either under or overpass, and that's the one that sort of, when this initially started, it was like there was Klaus saying, what about this one? And then Councillor Gallo's overarching request. Is there absolutely zero funding that's going to come from Metrolinx? Are they saying just forget it, even for Cousins? The big zero, nothing, right?
Zero. Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Metrolinx will not, as we understand it, will not fund any of these crossings. However, if we put up the funding, they will incorporate it into their design.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice to accommodate our. Anyway, I'm just a little disappointed. I know we've tried this again and again, but just really disappointed that there's no partnership there whatsoever. And it's just a heavy load. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gallo.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm surprised at the report. I can't say I'm disappointed that we didn't really explore any other options. It seemed to be, to me, an exercise of, and I've seen it unfortunately too many times, when there isn't necessarily, and I'm not blaming anyone, but a will for something. What you do is throw some scary figures around, and everybody tends to back away. I would have liked to have seen some type of options. We do have a trails master plan that indicates these crossings. Be it a lack of, forethought to not put some money away for these types of capital projects. we didn't have a problem spending $30 million on a JOC that virtually no residents will ever see or questionably have a benefit to. We are bisected by railway tracks, and double tracking them every day, 15 minutes apart, is going to drastically change the way we commute. The idea behind the Trails Master Plan is to encourage utilitarian, non-motorized transportation. Get out of your car, be able to walk to wherever you want to go, shop, play, work, without some forethought in terms of how we can get people east and west. That's not necessarily too onerous in terms of how far they have to walk. We've virtually destroyed that concept, and you can remove it from the plan because it just won't exist. And once all that work is done, you can forget about it. And I realize there's costs involved, but that doesn't mean you give up. This is the first report on this. That doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean you put pressure on Metrolinx. There's a whole slew of things you could probably do. We can take the Wellington Street just east of John Westway and west of Bathurst as an example of past councils that didn't want to spend a little bit of money to have an underpass there, and now to put one there is extremely expensive. We're in that position now as a council, and yeah, we have to determine, what are our priorities. We're spending nearly $60 million on Library Square. It just seems like it's a complete missed opportunity that we should have been putting money aside for this type of thing, and we didn't. And it's one of the things that in 5 or 10 years will drastically impact the way people move around this town once that is complete. So I'm supportive, obviously, of bringing it to budget, to continue the discussion, to collectively figure out a way how we can make one or some of these things happen. And that's my view.
Thank you, Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Gallo. I think he's got some really great points there that we shouldn't give up and keep the lines of communication open. Don't shut the door right away, because we really don't. This is the beginning of those discussions and some options. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Waters, I know I had spoken to Metrolinx offline, kind of, it was, I guess, during COVID, and I had the impression that not everything was off the table. So I'm optimistic that, maybe there's other opportunity there, and maybe we just haven't explored it yet. And I just wondered if that was part of the conversation that you had with them, or something changed.
Conversation I've had with them many times, and I even know our former mayor Jeff Daw had the same conversations. Funding is off the table. They'll help in any other way except for money.
Mr. Waters, I know that the mayor had spoken to him as well, but was there any other way they were saying they're going to help other than funding that Mr. Mayor is alluding to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Metrolinx is if it's beyond their scope in terms of what they're doing, they will not pay for it. So it's considered to be an extra, and that goes with anything that's beyond the scope of what Metrolinx is proposing to do, with regards to the underpass, any kind of infrastructure work. So my understanding is they've been quite clear that they will not be funding extras, and this is considered to be an extra.
Thank you. I just thought that maybe there was something above and beyond funding. So whether there was something, if it wasn't monetary, what were those other things that they could do to help? But I guess we don't have a clear answer on that.
Sorry, I just interrupt for 1 second.
Yep.
Just to clear that up, the only thing that they would supply, and I guess maybe I should have said this to begin with, is that they would actually allow us to go ahead and do it.
Okay.
That's what they would allow for. But no.
Okay. Okay, just wanted some clarity on that because I just wanted to know if there was something there I was missing. Other than that, I'd still like to open the lines of communication on this and move forward with options. It may not be the best case scenario how it's being presented now, but again, this is the first round. So I support the recommendation how it's being presented.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson for a second time.
If there's anybody that hasn't spoken for the first time, I'm happy to wait.
Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys. Oh yeah, Councillor Humphreys already spoke. It's just Councillor Kim. Councillor Kim, did you want to speak for the first time? No. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, Councillor Gallo referenced the JOC and mentioned that there's no benefit. Can you remind members of council all that the JOC and the hardworking employees that are there do for the benefit of the community?
Mr. Downey?
Well, I can go over some of the duties that come out of the JOC right now.
Wonderful.
So 3 departments actually are working out of the JOC. So I'll talk about operations first. And so we have our roads program, which deals with maintenance and repair to all roads. So that ranges from potholes to curbs, maintenance, winter maintenance, summer maintenance, cleaning catch basins, that type of thing. We are also responsible for water, making sure that there's safe water for all the residents of Aurora. We deal with wastewater, so your sewage, and stormwater. So those heavy storms and dealing with the storm ponds. We also are responsible for parks, so we do park planning, design, construction, and maintenance out of the Joint Operations Center. And we're also responsible for the entire fleet for the corporation. The other departments in the corporation, corporate services has their bylaw and their animal service division working out of the Joint Operations Center. And community services is also located in the Joint Operations Center.
Councillor?
Regardless of your opinion of the construction of the JOC, I think it's fair to say that the construction and the development of the JOC allowed us to expand services and improve what we do for our residents from what we had at Scanlon. So I don't think it's fair to say that there's no benefit to the community in reference to the JOC. And I think that's not even germane to the conversation, but that's my opinion.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too, when Councillor Gallo brought forward the motion earlier in the year, my perspective was that, it doesn't hurt to scope out the project and see, what the financial burden might be, what other ideas could come about from the report. And so, I was for it. I think, like most projects, it's all about prioritizing the benefits to the town. And clearly, this would be a benefit to many Aurorans. There's no doubt about that. But it's, from my perspective, it's just all about prioritizing and the budgetary liability attached to that. We've had this dialogue with Metrolinx and to other stakeholders for many years, so this is not the first round. I don't see the sense in keeping this motion outstanding for staff. Staff already knows that, if possible, if there is an affordable solution to any of our crossings, they should know to have the dialogue with their counterparts and other stakeholders with or without any outstanding motion. And certainly Mr. Mayor, has regular consultation with Metrolinx. And so, they know what we want. We all want it. It's just the price tag and our priorities. And And so, for those reasons, I'd not be in favor of this report at this time.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner, second time. Councillor, you're on mute.
Thank you for telling me. I appreciate what Councillor Gallo said, and active transportation is becoming more and more important, it seems, in the COVID and probably post-COVID world. I was being a bit flippant before because of the cost, and we just don't have the money for it. But I don't think we should completely take it off the table. I don't think there's any problem putting it in the 10-year capital plan. We may not be able to do it, but I don't want us to completely lose sight of the possibility. So I do approve of the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland, second time. You're on mute, Councillor.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment about the priorities. And if I do reflect on our strategic plan, that the very first goal that they do talk about, the very first objective is improving transportation, mobility, and connectivity within our town. So if I were to reflect on what was really important when we put the strategic plan together, what was really important to our town, that certainly does stand out. And again, I just wouldn't want to see this just left on the table and close the door. I don't know if that is the right approach with the overpass, but at least it's a start. And, this is just one small part moving forward. At least we can kind of keep the open conversation going. I do think it's a priority with the people in Aurora. It was mentioned COVID times, a lot more people are building home offices, working remotely. People are walking in the trails a lot more. I can attest to the fact I am somebody who walks in New York Regional Forest trails and the local trails here in Aurora on a daily basis. And I see more people than I ever have since COVID had started. And it's great to see people out there utilizing it and walking and getting fresh air and for that mental health. And that connectivity from the east to west, it does play a huge role in how we travel from one side and the other, and to reduce the greenhouse gases and, just the cars on the road and being more active, healthy lifestyle. This is certainly a real big step forward and connecting both worlds. And in fact, we often talked about connecting the East and the West for the sake of, coming over to, Library Square, the Armory, or wherever on the downtown core. And, families can take their bikes and go to the farmer's market, and they can go right across from the trails or walk. So there are a lot of advantages, and I still want to keep this open. I don't want to see this fizzle. And I hope that the council agrees.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, I thought basically, when this all started from my perspective, this has been on for years, right? We've always wanted this to happen. And initially I had put in a motion, if you guys remember, for the Cousins Drive, the one site. And I think, Mr. Mayor, you contacted Metrolinx from that perspective, I believe. And they came back with an answer just for the Cousins Drive, basically saying, absolutely, we're allowed to do this. They just won't support us in funding. That was the letter that was in our information this evening. And then Councillor Gallo came up with an overall strategy of all crossings and what would that mean in costs and so on. I don't want to cause staff any undue work. However, I don't really want to lose sight of this either, because maybe we'll approve one every 10 years and we decide which one we want. If we see value in it as a council, as a whole, discussing a capital budget, and we all say no or yes, and that's different. I absolutely have to understand the implications. It may not happen for another year, 2 years, 10 years, but to kind of, put it away, I think it's a council's priority list, right? And we could say, okay, let's look at Cousins Drive. Oh, it's 8 million. Okay, look at everything else. No, it's not going to happen. Or maybe not this year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years. And that's where we need staff to take a look at what we believe are our priorities and maybe can accommodate one crossing every 5 years or whatever. And maybe in time, there's other ways of funding. I don't know. I'm just trying to, I just hate to close the door. I'll tell you a real life example. Walking the dog around the corner, a couple of people were saying, why won't you take the fence down at Cousins Drive? It used to be so easy for us to go across, and now we've got to go around. It was absolutely it's for us security. We don't want you getting hurt because the trains are going to be going every 15 minutes, and we can't have you just running across a track like that. And they're like, oh, it's too bad you couldn't do something to help, and that's, my apologies, right or wrong. That's the one I hear a lot about. I'm not discounting any other crossing. They're probably all important, but that's the one I hear a lot about. And so, Mr. Mayor, for me, I think I wouldn't mind having this here, not necessarily all one big shot, but let's have a discussion at budget. And if we all believe it's not the right time, then that's fair. I don't want to lose sight of it. And I'm being a bit partial in terms of what I've heard, and hopefully I'm not straying the residents down a garden path, because this is very, very, very expensive and may not happen for a very, very long time, if ever. I just don't want to lose sight of it just now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I lowered it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo?
Just last quick point in terms of Metrolinx and what their actual letter says. I'll read one paragraph. It says, while our teams are available to continue early discussions about safety measures that would need to be in place to explore alternative access, we are not prepared to discuss the reopening of the level crossing. Instead, we would be open to exploring an infrastructure solution that is not at grade, e.g. a grade separated overpass or underpass. While there may be discussions about funding, that part is not, I'm not suggesting, they didn't say they're not going to pay for it, but it's not part of the letter that the mayor received.
Thank you. Mr. Waters, if this was to get approved, how much work would staff have for the 2022 budget? Or would you basically be just submitting this report in essence?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would essentially undertake a prioritization of these crossings. The other option to consider is that I believe historically these have not been put into your DC bylaw. There's a DC bylaw coming up, review coming up in 2023, and we can definitely incorporate these crossings into the bylaw, and that would pay for some of the costs. But if the direction is to start, putting them into the 10-year capital plan as part of the budget process, we will definitely do that.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Council, my suggestion would be, I think, and I said this before, I think that if you're willing to pay for it, and we've talked about this, we've gone round and round in circles. If you're willing to pay for it and you think it's a good idea, I think that we should prioritize them right now if that's the case, if we want this to go forward. Why saddle burden on staff to bring forward all 8 when we fully, I've heard it right around the table. I don't think anyone's recommending that we do all 8. So why not right here and right now say, you know what, this is the one that I want staff to bring for 2022, do the extra work, do their due diligence, bring it for us, and we'll figure it out. And then as Mr. Waters said, in 2023, when we do the DC bylaw, we can look at adding this. So that way the development community can start to properly pay and fund for these, so we can get these all done eventually. But I think that if we are looking at it, we should just focus on the priority. Which one is it that we think is the most important one in our community to get done? Say it now so staff can get. That would be my recommendation. So, Councillor Humphreys, did you wanted to put something forward? Everyone's spoken twice except for Councillor Kim.
If it's okay, if you, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay with my peers, I would love to ask for Cousins Drive to be a priority. It seems to be, I think, around the table, we've heard that one is quite a one that it seems to come forward quite often. I know there's a cattle crawl, but I think that one is one of the highest ones that we've heard. That's you, Mr. Mayor, if anyone else would agree or second that.
Councillor Gilliland, I'll get you to second it, but then I'm just going to go to Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, is that an okay amendment?
This is a great one, sir.
Let's go for it then.
I think if there's consensus around the table that the it would have to replace number 2. I think I don't think they can run in conjunction, and so in that sense it would be contrary. If there's consensus around the table though that you want to replace number 2 with the Cousins Drive crossing be brought forward to the 2022 budget, that would be okay. But I'd look for the consensus around the table, because right now if it's just to replace number 2, it looks like it's contrary.
Okay, so council, unless there's any objections, would we replace number 2 with the council approve the Cousins Drive as a priority and identify Cousins Drive as a priority, and that staff report back on the feasibility of funding the crossing as part of the 2022 budget 10-year capital planning process? Unless there's any objections, is everyone fine with replacing number 2 with that? Councillor Gallo, I'll ask you, because I know this started from your motion, so I'll ask you, are you okay with that, or did you want to add another one to it, or did you just want to leave it the way it is?
Well, really, I would have loved some analysis from staff other than the 8 that are really in the Trails Master Plan. Basically, we have identified all of them, and I agree that to do all of them doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't know if just one is okay. That was kind of the point of this, is to narrow down what is feasible and what is appropriate in terms of distances across the northwest side of the town. If it's only Cousins and that makes the most sense and that solves the problem, then I'm in support of that. But I really was trying to get direction from staff in terms of which ones could we do to achieve what we're trying to achieve, to have a functioning east-west passage. If it starts with that, so be it. Beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. So just so I understand, you're okay if we remove 2 for this, for what Councillor Humphreys is suggesting? Okay. And I got Councillor Gilliland seconding that, correct? Okay. Is there any comments or questions to that amendment? Councillor Kim.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Waters, I understand where Councillor Gallo is coming from. He has a passion to have the east-west be connected. I'm not sure, I can't see it taking that much time to do a quick analysis of which east-west connectors would be recommended or most appropriate. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, by next week or by the end of the cycle of this month, would you be able to bring back a couple of recommendations so that we can put 1 or 2 onto the 2022 capital budget?
Mr. Waters, and I'm just going to, are they not numbered in the prioritization that staff have prioritized them? Am I correct on that? Okay.
That's my understanding, Mr. Mayor, yes.
So Councillor Kim, if you look at the attachment number 1, they're numbered from 1 to 8. That's in priority sequence. Staff have prioritized them. So Cousins Drive is number 1.
Okay, well, I didn't realize they were prioritized. So if they are prioritized, then I think that, that may answer part of what Councillor Gallo is looking for. And I guess it's up to him whether he wants to continue with the number 1 recommendation or put the top 2. I'll leave it to him, but thank you for confirming, Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Any other comments to the amendment? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks. Can you just repeat what the amendment is, just to be clear?
So the amendment is that council approve Cousins Drive, or I identified Cousins Drive as the priority, and staff report back on the feasibility of funding the crossing as part of the 2022 budget 10-year capital planning process. So basically it's the exact same as what number 2 is, except for you remove that first part of the sentence and introduce Cousins Drive as the priority. Mr. Natarasi.
As long as, as you said, we're not approving, we're just identifying.
Yes, we're just identifying. Mr. Natarasi, Mr. Cielo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to clarify. So the intent would be that this would not come back. It would be during our next round of budget deliberations, which are starting in a couple of weeks, right? We would come back in 2022 with a potential modification to the 10-year plan that you approved this year.
Correct. That's my reading of what's in front of us. Councillor Thompson, did you want to finish? Did you have anything else? No? Councillor Gallo to the amendment?
I'm just questioning timing and Metrolinx. If we were intending on moving forward with this, does it line up with what the timing of Metrolinx? I guess if it's an overpass, it may not make a difference anyway, but I just don't want to be putting something in a budget when they're already far ahead, and it adds costs, and it's best to do it obviously in conjunction.
For sure, Councillor Gallo, and I'll have those conversations again, but unless Mr. Waters can correct me on this, but I think that they're easily 3 to 5 years away.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct. They are still in the detailed design stage. They just went out to a PIC about a month or 2 ago, if I recall. So yeah, they're still in the detailed design stage.
So you through you to Mr. Waters, is 2022 budget timing wise feasible?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it is. You have to understand that we have to go through a design process here. So even though if there's money allocated through the budget process for 2022 or 2023, we'll also have to go through the design process, go through the EA process, get the approvals. But what we can do is we can certainly work with Metrolinx to advise that we are moving in this direction, and that any plans that they have, take into account the potential underpass or overpass of Cousins Drive.
Councillor? Thank you. Any other comments, questions to the amendment? Seeing none. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if we could put also the second choice. There's a very large, as part of the amendment, there's a very large population west of the tracks that come from north and south of Henderson. I would say, actually, I would say mostly south of Henderson, between the cattle crawl and Bathurst. And the only way they can get anywhere is to walk up to Henderson and take transit across there. There's very few options in that area. And so I think that is an important one to keep in our mind.
I'll just ask that mover and second, is okay with that? We add number 2 on there as well. Councillor Humphries? Yeah?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm okay, but I'm prioritizing the one that was my initial.
Right.
But absolutely, if everyone is okay with that, I just kind of wanted to try to get this one rolling first, but whatever's fine, I'm okay.
Well, from the conversation, from that, Councillor Gardner, I'd ask if you want to put an amendment to the amendment. Just because it doesn't sound like it's too friendly.
Yeah. So I'll try an amendment to the amendment, which would be that.
The second, number 2, the cattle crawl, BG Properties.
Right. I would like to put it in such a way that the priority is the Cousins Crossing, and that should we be successful with doing the Cousins Crossing, that the next crossing we look at is BG.
Well, I don't know if we can word it that way, Councillor, because the staff are going to do the same amount of work from a feasibility standpoint for both and bring them to us in the 2022. Because they would equally bring that, and then council would decide from that where to go with that. So I don't think we can.
Oh, no, so that's not the intent. The intent is, I think that might be the second most important one, somehow to keep that in view. So maybe that could come to, I don't know, is there any point in saying it should come to the next budget?
I'll leave it.
How
to
do, I mean, how do I keep that on the list? How do I keep that in our
Well,
minds? Should Cousins be successful?
Well, council, I would say that they all stay on the list. None of them disappear. I mean, and we can bring them back at any time as a council if we so wish. But what we're asking here is for staff to create.
Okay. Okay, I'll think of something else.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
I withdraw that idea.
thank you. Any other comments or questions to the amendment? Call a vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So back to the main motion as amended. Councilor Thompson, did you still want them split? Yes? Okay. So we will call the first, which is to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And number two, well, the new number two that was amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, council, notice is a motion. We don't have any new business. Councilor Gilliland. New business?
No, just some public service announcements.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson, new business? No. Councilor Gallo, new business? Councilor Humphreys, new business? Councilor Kim, new business? No? Oh, you don't? Councilor Gardner, new business?
I'm going to try and say this diplomatically. It's been brought to my attention many times that the Stuart Burnett Field and there's one other, I'll think of it in a moment. Sorry, LC4. These are very important ball diamonds, and they're not being kept in the shape that I think they deserve. So I don't know who was on council then, but the Aurora Baseball Association came to us when we approved Stuart Burnett, which was a lot of money, and we were looking at rates, etc. We made an agreement with the Aurora team, the Aurora organization, that they would do some maintenance on the field. They would do the maintenance on the field, and I believe in exchange, we gave them a shelter for their equipment. I can't remember exactly. It's a long time ago. Anyway, I don't know where that agreement stands right now. It's become the Aurora King Association. I don't know who's maintaining it. There needs to be more sand. The mound needs to be built up. It needs to be protected with a tarp and with something at the side to keep it in shape. So could staff look into that, please? We put a lot of money into these fields, and we should be maintaining them, especially there are visiting teams on these as well.
Absolutely. Mr. Downey, could you just speak to, I think it was you that brought that report when we dealt with that that item, make that agreement with the Aurora King.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. And they did, was for Stuart Burnett, wanted to come in and provide an enhanced level of service. So the town has a service level, and they wanted to go beyond that for Stuart Burnett, which council permitted. However, we found that they were not performing those duties all the time. So we wanted to make sure that at the minimum, we met our standards and made sure the ball diamonds were safe. This is actually the first time that I've heard we have an issue with regards to maintenance of LC4 or Stuart Burnett. Covering in the mound is certainly a service level that we do not perform at this point. It would be an enhanced level of service. And so as I say, that's somewhat news. If the member of council could certainly send whoever is concerned that came from to us, we can certainly discuss it with the Aurora King Ball Association and find out what we can do in order to assist. But as I say, this is the first time I've heard there was an issue.
Councillor, can you maybe have a conversation with Mr. Downey? That way we can kind of get.
Yeah, I will, but I would just like to speak to that enhanced level of service. If we have a mound, protecting it, certainly in that level field, protecting it just seems to me to be practical as opposed to an enhanced level of service. So, because as soon as we talk about enhanced levels of service, but those two fields in particular, I think, need something like that. A need versus want. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Is there any other new business, Councillor?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to public service announcement. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. South Lake is having a virtual town hall tomorrow evening at 7, I believe it's at 7, to discuss the future of your hospital. The South Lake was here in the council chamber about a year ago, or maybe a little more than that. And they presented such interesting information about how the hospital could be expanded or moved. I don't think anyone from council was there, but it was very interesting. So I would suggest to council and members of the public, I mean, this is our hospital. It's going through challenges. And I think we should pay attention to what they're saying. And I also think it's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim, public service announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce the new members of the Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force.
Great.
And these members are Fiona Durant, Noor El Dasuki, Keenan Hall, May Kamisa, Mark Lewis, and Tricia Wright. So congratulations, and the mayor and I look forward to working with these wonderful people.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphreys, public service announcement. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So October is Small Business Month. I didn't realize that till I saw it all over social media. And I think it's really important, especially after our discussions earlier this evening with the Economic Development Board and the ways we were trying to help support our businesses. So just take a little note that if you want to support a small business, write a positive review, tell your friends and family about them, follow them on social media, engage in their posts, give them a shout out, and sign up for any communication you get from them. So I think just those little things will help, especially in these times, to help our small businesses. Very important. And Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you were going to mention it, but the prayer breakfast will be virtual now. Do you mind? Oh, thank you. So I think it's kind of special. It's always a sold out event. And I think what's kind of cool in this one is because it's online and virtual, I don't know if they'll even get to a sold out event. I think anyone will be able to join. It's going to be on Thursday, October the 22nd, so plenty of time. There's no enrollment. You just go on into www.prayforthem.ca. And it's really, it's always been inspirational, one of our favorite things to attend. And it's quite an honor to be part of it or just enjoy it. And one thing I think is going to be very interesting is that the keynote speaker is Mara Anatha. Sorry. Yes. Weeks. My apologies for if I said her name wrong. And she's a public speaker on her impactful experience as a nurse on the front lines. So I think during this time would be quite an experience for everyone to get to listen and learn. So thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you. Oh, and don't forget, Saturday Farmers Market coming up to wrap up soon. So try to make it. And Mr. Mayor, obviously that you're there every Saturday. I was away for 2 weekends in a row and I hate missing it, but from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Town Park, it's been incredible. Lots of great produce still, lots of things that you can get from the artisans. So to see you out there.
Thank you. Councillor Garner, I'll come back to you. Councillor Gallo, Public Service.
Just really quickly to congratulate St. Andrews College for starting a new all-girls school, St. Anne's, on the proposed Dunning property on the north side of St. John Side Road, west of Yonge, and also a congratulations to Sabrina, who's a close friend and will be the head of school for St. Anne's. So a great new addition to the town of Aurora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson, Public Service. Councillor Gilliland, Public Service.
Thank you. Wow, a lot of great announcements tonight. What an exciting time, eh? I also want to talk about that prayer breakfast. Councillor Humphreys, thank you so much that it is free. So it's for the go to this breakfast, and I think it's at 8 a.m. if I'm correct. Yeah, which is great. I wanted to talk about the Colors of Fall concert in Aurora. This is really cool. It's going to be at Town Park on Thursday, October the 8th. So this week from 6 to 7:30 p.m. You do have to register. So just go online. You can just Google Colors of Fall concert in Town of Aurora and it'll pop up and you can register there. The other really great thing that the town's putting together is the Haunted Greenhouse, which is coming up. Halloween in a Bag, and there's going to be all sorts of activities and things that you can participate in from October 24th to Friday the 30th. There's a whole bunch of stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of opportunity to participate. So I think this is going to be really interesting and a great time. So please check that out as well. Haunted Greenhouse, Town of Aurora.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner? Did you have something else?
I do, and we always should thank our wonderful special events department headed by Shelley Ware for doing these things. When Councillor Humphreys mentioned the market, it reminded me that Jan, the jam lady, Jan, wore many hats, including on the board at the senior center. And her lovely husband is going to be moving from Aurora to Stratford to be with his amazing daughter, who is an actor at Stratford, in Stratford at the theater. So just like to wish him all the best, because he was a fixture at that Aurora's Farmers Market along with the Jan for quite a while. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Gardner, for that. I just have a couple. As was mentioned, obviously, St. Andrews College has announced that they are opening up a sister school, St. Anne's School, which is very exciting. We just had the actually press conference today. It's an exciting moment to be able to have. Well, it's actually a unique opportunity to have an all-girls private school that's going to be able to create significant educational opportunities, not just for the town of Aurora, but for girls in the town of Aurora, but also all of York Region. So it's very exciting. Also, this Thursday, we have the groundbreaking for Library Square, another exciting moment. And coming up in about a week and a half, and I know this is going to be news to you, I just received this news, we're also going to be having a ribbon cutting and an opening of our hotel. It's a long time coming. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in our town. We have an all-girls school coming, a Library Square is coming, groundbreaking, downtown revitalization, a hotel which we haven't had for 10 years. It's very, very exciting with things happening. And Councillor Humphreys, I did want to add on to what you said, the importance of supporting our local businesses. It's very crucial, very important, especially during this time. But I want to remind everyone, while we do want to support them, we want to go out there, but we do need to remain vigilant in keeping that physical distancing, wearing those masks when we are in closed spaces, and washing our hands and not touching our faces. And I think that if we do that, we can minimize those risks. And everyone's been doing a great job to this point. I think as long as we continue that, our local businesses can continue to build. And as we move through this, start to move forward and thrive. And so it's key that we support them. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Councillor Humphrey. So thank you very much. Council, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gardner, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, Council. See you guys next week.